Last time on Monster Ball Z, Gao Peng took down a walking nuclear bomb for the government, and Dumby's got a new fire skill plus a flower for a hat. Right now they're in a desert on their way to get Dumby's last evolution material and crush a cult's HQ. In said desert, they come across a small village inhabited by monkeys, all led by a stupid-looking white-furred carnivorous monkey. As Gao Peng and his posse walk into the carnivorous monkey's house, his newly acquired bladed beast familiar expresses concern. Gao Peng assures it that the monkey doesn't seem to hold ill intentions but to stay on guard regardless. Sure enough, the monkey welcomes them and offers a bowl of some strange soup to eat. Nope, not a chance. That crap looks nasty as hell. Gao Peng can sense something strange, so he heads to a door in the back while asking how the monkey could hide away the good stuff from guests. As soon as he gets near the door, the ape gets enraged and lunges at him with its arm raised, ready to end him. The bladed beast, who shall henceforth be known as Slicey, comes in before he can do any damage though and cuts him right up. Inside the back room, Gao Peng internally monologues about the signs of human life in the village and the smell of blood and cooked meat inside this particular house. Sure enough, as he walks further in, he spots a pot with a sinister-looking stew boiling in it. And from the middle of it, a single human finger is poking out. "Excuse me while I go barf up my breakfast." Turning to the monkey, Gao Peng asks if it enjoys eating people. Rather than being afraid or nervous, the ape unleashes a roar of all but palpable fury. He yells about how he's only doing what was already done to him. The man in his soup ate his son first. Alright, that's fair, I guess. Monkey owes me breakfast though. Looking down at him with saddened eyes, Gao Peng tells him he understands and can't judge him without being hypocritical. But regardless of that, he's still human, and he can't just excuse what's happened here. As he walks out of the house, he remorsefully tells Slicey to give the ape a swift and painless end. Later that day, Gao Peng along with the Frost Lion, Dumby and Flaming are spying on the Platinum Hand's headquarters. Thanks to intel from Grandpa G's friend, he's managed to find them, and now he'll take revenge for agitating the mountain spirits and sending assassins after him. At his command, Dumby activates his resurrection ability and awakens all the fallen beasts that have passed here. Inside the HQ, a couple of the Platinum Hand's bishops are going back and forth about their work here. One is whining about wanting to leave the desert while another is trying to pacify him when a messenger suddenly barges in. He tells them that corpses near their town have somehow been reanimated and are attacking their people. Sure enough, the cult members outside are being terrorized by a horde of undead led by the Supreme Lord of Necromancy, Dumby. The bishops recognize one of the reanimated beasts as a Lord-tier giant thorn-worn lizard they just barely managed to kill last month. They quickly send out a blue-scaled four-armed river ape to fight against it, but it only manages a stalemate. Up on their vantage point, Gao Peng, Frosty, and Slicey are observing the battle when a silver-winged mirage comes flying at them. Gao realizes they didn't sense it incoming due to its mirage ability, but manages to send out Slicey just in time to deal with it. In a single use of his storm cross-kill technique, Slicey drops the mirage like a simple housefly, leaving the Platinum Hand's bishops in a state of fearful panic. One of them tries to call back his Earth Dragon before it can be beaten as well, but Frosty already has that covered. After just a tad bit of posing, he traps the dragon in an ice cage with a simple thought. When Gao Peng mocks him for the ice already melting, Frosty puts in one whole finger's worth of effort and encases the dragon in a solid pillar of ice. With the mirage and dragon beaten, all that's left now is the blue four-armed ape. The blue ape is putting on an admirable fight, beating the stuffing out of Dumby's summoned underlings one by one. Dude looks like Vegeta from the Saiyan arc. After claiming victory on its enemies, the ape beats his chest to bask in the glory of victory. That doesn't last long though, as just a moment later Dumby himself arrives on the scene. Facing the ape, he drops one of the hardest one-liners in this series so far. Death is the final home of all the living. The ape is both caught off guard and just woefully under-equipped to fight back when Dumby proceeds to pummel him with ease. After a simple palm thrust, the ape is knocked down and stares up at Dumby in rage. That too is put to an end, however, when Dumby uses a special ability to make the ape writhe in agony. From his spot above, Gao Peng realizes that Dumby has combined his undead flame and blood thread heart skills to create a new one. With this, he can control and burn the enemy at the same time. Then, as a final defense, the blue ape releases a shockwave of elemental power to try and counterattack. Slicey asks Gao Peng if they should help Dumby, but Frosty is quick to state the water attack will do little more than give Dumby a wash. Gao Peng seconds this and says that this is nothing to Dumby, as the familiar in question shrugs off the ape's attack and uppercuts it into the next life. With their work here nearing completion, Gao Peng asks Flamey to keep an eye on the base from up above and make sure nobody escapes. Inside, the yellow bishop tells his comrades that it's time to flee using one of their tunnels. When he turns around, though, he finds the blue and red bishops pointing guns at him. Huh, I forgot those are even a thing. What with all the stupidly overpowered familiars and all? The two bishops tell Yellow that with their familiars both dead or injured, they have no way of defending themselves if he plans to double-cross them. The only way they're leaving here is if he sends out his own Lord Tier familiar as well to buy time for them. With that, a sinister smile worms its way onto Yellow's face, and he calls forth a flying carpet. I think. Kinda looks like Doctor Strange's cape too. Pick a lane, Bishop Dude. Using this thing as a weapon, he straight up decapitates Blue and attempts the same on Red. However, luckily for him, Red is able to escape at the last moment through some sort of teleportation. The bishop lands in the desert outside and thanks his lucky stars that he's kept his true power hidden till now. Yeah, don't be too grateful just yet, pal. Unfortunately for him, he jumped from that frying pan straight into the fire that is Gao Peng's custody. He traps the bishop inside Frosty's ice while Dumby tosses the unconscious body of Yellow at his feet. He also has the rub thing in his fist, which as it turns out is Yellow's familiar. Red takes one look at the brutalized condition of Yellow and he knows that he doesn't want to anger Gao Peng or his familiars. After all, he's just taken out the entire Platinum Hands on his own. Ahead of him, Gao Peng comments that these two living bishops are useless to him, even as hostages, and he should just off them now. Red instantly starts babbling and sucking up to him and promises to help him take everything from the Platinum Hands in exchange for his life. Their treasures, their bases. He'll tell Gao Peng where all of it is hidden. Seeing the bishop for the treasure trove of intel that he is, Gao Peng rubs his chin and tells him that he'll unfreeze the bishop so they can discuss this in more detail. Just then, Streppy telepathically informs Gao Peng that a monster is coming his way and it's far from weak. For a king tier beast like Stripey, who sees even Lord tiers as insects, Gao Peng is rightly unnerved by what this new beast could be. Sure enough, a few short moments later, the monster is upon them and is one massive fish, a level 52 king tier desert pillar monster of perfect grade. The red bishop recognizes the beast and warns Gao Peng to be careful. That king tier monster is so powerful that the Platinum Hand were only able to set up base here after getting its blessing. As he watches Gao Peng prepare to face the desert pillar, Red thinks about how if he just puts up enough of the pitiful act, this young man should spare him out of the compassion of a naive youth. Right as he's thinking this, Gao Peng asks him where the Platinum Hand's treasures are hidden. The bishop tries to stall for the moment and asks for some time to try and remember the locations. In response, Gao Peng asks if he knows how to subdue the desert pillar then. All that Red can think about is how unstoppable Gao Peng will be if he gets another king tier familiar, and so he tries to tell him he doesn't know. Contrary to his belief about Gao Peng being the naive youngster, Gao Peng tells him he's of no use if he's not going to share any info and has Dumby crush him into cookie powder. All I had to do was snitch, man. Now you're deader than my will to live. With the bishop taken care of, Gao Peng offers up the frozen and beaten familiars to Streppy as a snack. Just then, the figurative elephant in the ruin finally pipes up. The desert pillar bellows at Gao Peng for ignoring him and gives him a warning that he has aroused the beast's interest. Yo, that sounds sus as hell. Evidently, Gao Peng feels the same way because he freaks out at the monster's choice of words and calls him crazy. Even more offended by the disrespect, the desert pillar tells him he's the crazy one and that he's not welcome here, so he has to leave. All that power, and the best comeback he's got is "know you." Gao Peng just casually tells the desert pillar that he's not going anywhere. He's tired, so he's going to stay here for the night. Enraged by the continued disrespect, the desert pillar announces that Gao Peng is dead and unleashes a massive shockwave of power. Gao Peng just looks on with an unimpressed and peeved expression before asking Frosty to take care of this. When the little guy starts shooting icicles up at the desert pillar, it assumes that Gao Peng is trying to gauge his power by using a weak familiar and decides to catch him alive for questioning. To start off his assault, he looks to Stripey and lunges to take out the largest threat first. Unfortunately, his pincers don't quite make it through the hard skin that Stripey now possesses. In fact, the massive earth spider barely feels it, thinking that a mosquito is trying to sting him. A second later, the effects of the guy's fru wear off and Stripey starts growing back to his full size. Still on the spider's back, Desert Ruler doesn't understand what's happening and senses his power getting weaker as he rises further from the desert floor. To top off the mountain of bad luck being dumped on him, the monster is spotted by Stripey, who releases the geysers of black fumes on his body. Standing right above one, the desert ruler gets cooked and blasted into the stratosphere at speeds that would even make Teen Rocket jealous. After having a smug chuckle at the desert ruler's expense, Gao Peng turns to observe the gold-threaded rug monster that's now in Dumby's grasp. When he mentions how badly he wants to study it, Frosty asks if he wants to make it his familiar. Gao Peng replies that he just wants to study it, but even if he did want that, the rug is already bonded to a master. Confused, Frosty tells him that the blood contract can in fact be broken. All it requires is the proper incantation and conscious consent from both parties, the trainer and familiar. Gao Peng is intrigued by this method of peaceful separation and decides to not tell anyone except his grandfather for now. Telling the world about this when they've just barely adapted to the new world will only cause chaos. He decides to give the rug monster to Huangya when they get home and hands Frosty a fruit as thanks. The next day, Gao Peng and his group are on their way to the Holy Light Religion's temple where everything is made in the color white. The only thing that's black is a reanimated statue monster outside, making Gao question if it was contaminated before undergoing mutation. Suddenly, treasure-sniffing Mouse goes crazy, to what I can only assume is arousal when he senses nearby treasure. Interested by the intense reaction, Gao Peng instructs Strippy to follow the mouse's directions. A little bit later, they find themselves in front of a flame-faced mushroom which contains rich fire-based nutrients. Hell, there's even monsters around it acting as guards. Gao Peng and Da Zi instantly harmonize and trick Goldie into beating said guards so they can get the mushroom. Once they have it, Da Zi asks what this treasure is exactly. Gao Peng tells him that this right here is a material that can help with Flamey's evolution. Later that day, the gang finally arrive at the temple in the Yellow Desert region. In front of them stand a horde of monsters, specifically white birch tree demons, all led by the blackened stone statue of the convicted. Though it was only a level 40 in the picture Gao Peng saw of it just a few hours ago, it's already at the Lord tier now. Gao Peng instructs Flamey to take care of the tree demons while Slicey faces off against the statue. Flamey follows his orders to perfection, frying up all the birch trees like a bucket of chicken. Meanwhile, Slicey is easily cutting the statue up little by little. Gao Peng is surprised that it can even stand after Slicey's first attack, since any ordinary Lord tier monster would already be down for the count. A statue yells an incantation about the convicted going to hell or something and unleashes a wave of darkness that transforms the white birch trees into even more demonic-looking versions of themselves. Gao Peng sees that not only have they gotten stronger with their changed state, but their resistance to Flamey's fire has also increased significantly. Switching gears, he has Flamey retreat and sends in Da Zi instead. The mischievous centipede decides to showcase a technique taught to him by Grandpa G's Thunder God. Without a moment's warning, he unleashes the Thunder Net Storm skill, knocking down 4 of the birch tree demons at once and even dealing high damage to all the others. Meanwhile, Slicey is throwing a hissy fit because of a black spot on his shell. Gao Peng explains that it's just an effect of the statue's darkness element and it'll go away as soon as they defeat it. Slicey is livid at the shell. He's so proud of being sullied like this. In his rage, he attacks the statue with his 3,000 slashes of the Endless Hurricane and cuts it into pebbles. Man, these attack names are annoyingly long. Gao Peng berates Slicey for smashing the statue's core crystal, but the little guy is having none of it. That's what the statue gets for dirtying his shell. Luckily, this doesn't turn out to be too bad of a thing as the birch tree demons all just start wilting. Gao Peng realizes that they were feeding on the stone statue's power of darkness, and with that gone, they've got nothing to sustain them. With the bouncers taken care of, Gao Peng heads inside the temple after telling Strippy to wait for them outside. Yeah, no duh. Not like he fit in there anyways. Inside, they come across a fountain which features yet another statue. Though it's hidden quite well, Gao Peng sees right through it thanks to the system and knows this is another reanimated monster. He sends Goldie at it so they can start stacking up his passive buff, and a mere 3 minutes later, the statue is nothing but crushed rocks. Gao Peng quickly grabs the core from it and feeds it to Grassy, who is now level 36. With this core, he should be able to reach the Lord tier. After that, Gao Peng sees that the path ahead of them has been completely corrupted by darkness. When he has Flamey ignited Fireball to see the path, he spots a bunch of crystals of the Undying Heart. Based on the system's description of them, they're a sign that the essence of the Undying Heart is nearby. With a little more fire from Flamey, they're able to spot it, and Dumby grabs it right out of the darkness with a quick jab. With all the ingredients acquired, Gao Peng gets to work. He has Goldie punch a crater into the ground as a mixing vat and dumps a bunch of fluids into it. With the bath prepared, Gao Peng tells Dumby to place the essence of the Undying Heart in his eye socket and the 1,000-year Heart of Darkness in his chest. As soon as he does this, a power so intense erupts from Dumby that he's almost brought to his knees. Gao Peng instructs him to quickly get into the back. He's prepared and wishes him luck. Once Dumby's fully in the pit, a massive pillar of dark energy erupts into the sky, shocking Gao Peng with how much power is flowing from it. From the dust and debris of the sudden explosion, Dumby emerges. Only now, the red marks from his arm extend across his body, and the skeleton within him is encased in a golden glow. He is now a mythical grade lord tier level 7 skeleton dominator. So, he's a top then? What? It's a valid question. Gao Peng closely studies the new stats and skills that have appeared on Dumby's stat window. To his shock, he needs to upgrade his soul strength to view much of it. Even more shocking is that Dumby has a level 5 skill despite being below the king tier. Until now, he's only seen skills of that level in king tier or higher monsters. And if he considers the level boost from the flame of the undead skill, that makes 2 level 5 skills in Dumby's possession. Stripey may be his strongest beast right now, but it's clear that Dumby's potential to grow far outclasses any other beast he's seen up until now. Taking that into consideration, Gao Peng switches his soul chain to Dumby and has him test how much soul strength he can receive per monster absorbed. Following his instruction, Goldie walks off to bring over one of the birch tree demons they defeated earlier. Once he's back, Dumby summons one of his undead minions and has it release a freeze breath at Goldie. Not sure what's up with that. Sibling pranks, I guess. After having the minion absorb the tree demon, Dumby informs Gao Peng that absorbing a soul on his own will grant him about 1/5 of its strength, while having one of his minions do it will grant him 1/10. Gao Peng starts strategizing ways to maximize this insane growth potential Dumby as while Goldie yells at him for a fight in the background. A little while later, Gao Peng has Dumby summon all his undead minions and tells him to only keep the ones at level 40 and above. He should go ahead and absorb all of the others. That's not very nice. I'm sure he likes them. Oh, never mind. He doesn't care at all. Dumby instantly absorbs all the minions below level 40, and just like that, he shoots up to level 50. Gao Peng is blown away by the insane leveling speed that practically feels like a cheat code. Right now, Earth isn't suitable for someone like Dumby to grow according to his potential. The Fog World, however, unlike Earth, is much further along and has tons more monster skeletons buried under the ground. As such, Gao Peng tells Dumby that when they go home, he should take his henchmen to the Black Fog World for expansion of their forces. Dumby sadly asks if his master is deserting him with a tear going down his eye socket. How is that even possible? And why does it make me so sad? Gao Peng is quick to scold him for even thinking that he would ever abandon his precious familiar. This is just so he can grow without restrictions, so his potential isn't wasted. Dumby kneels before his master and earnestly tells him that he understands and will grow strong enough to defeat any and everyone. Somehow, I don't doubt him. And so, Gao Peng meets old Huang at Black Dragon Base City's airport before heading out for his next journey. He takes a case full of resources that he requested before asking how things are back home. Once Huang assures him that everyone's doing well and the school is running smoothly, Gao Peng has Goldie bring over the rug familiar he took from the Yellow Bishop. Huang is shocked to learn the rug is actually a familiar. However, that pales in comparison to the surprise he feels when Gao Peng tells him the Lord Tier familiar is his to keep. Gao Peng just tells him to pay attention to Dumby in the Black Fog World and help bring Goldie and Dazi back home. He himself will be heading straight to the North Pole from here for the moment. He meeting Santa? Better ask why the fat old man never got me that PSP2. Later, Gao Peng trudges through the snowy terrain of the North Pole with Grassy, Frosty, Silly, and Slicey at his side. Grassy starts feeling cold, so Frosty uses a quick application of his power to give the plant a heat barrier. As they continue their trek, Gao Peng tells Frosty they can look at the South Pole if they don't find any materials for him here. Frosty assures him, though, that he can feel something up ahead to the northeast. With some words of encouragement from Frosty, Gao Peng keeps going until they eventually spot a massive, sprawling city of pure ice in the distance. As they get closer, Gao Peng studies the precise and exquisite quality of the architecture of the walls alone and realizes this is beyond human capabilities. Just then, the gate swings open and a level 51 king tier monster known as an Ice Azura Knight steps out. Without Dumby and Stripey here, Gao Peng's strongest beast is Slicey, but he's pretty sure that won't be enough against this guy. Frosty seems blind to the danger though, far too focused on whatever he's sensing from inside the city. Luckily for them, the knight isn't immediately hostile and gives them a warning to leave first. Gao Peng is shocked that it can speak human language since that means it does have regular contact with human civilization. Either that or it was someone's familiar at some point. Nervously, Gao Peng requests permission to just look around the outside of the walls and promises to follow whatever rules are in place here. Without any response, the Azure Knight calmly turns around and walks right back into the palace it came from. Gao Peng assumes this means it has accepted their request and they're free to explore all they want. Before he can actually do that, though, Frosty leaps off his shoulder and makes a break for a frozen lake he spotted off to the side. Rose thirstier than an Eskimo in the desert. Gao Peng is unable to stop him before he dives face first into the water. To his surprise, though, Frosty's level shoots up from 41 to 43 just from that short dip. Suddenly, the Azure Knight appears right behind Gao Peng with zero warning and scares the crap out of him. Rather than saying anything about Frosty, he tells them all to come with him and promptly turns around to march back into the palace. Unfortunately, Frosty is a highly impulsive little beast with no situational awareness. The second he spots a pure ice spring, he tries to race off to dive into it. Luckily, Gao Peng manages to grab him this time and warns him that the knight is staring at them now. Surprisingly, the knight decides to be nice and states that this could help recover a portion of Frosty's lost power, allowing them to go ahead. Gao Peng eagerly thanks the knight before asking Silly for a bucket and a water tank. Dude's glazing like crazy. Weirdly enough, the water Gao Peng scoops into the bucket from the spring instantly turns a pure black and loses its steaming appearance upon being taken out. Frosty explains that this is a security measure to make sure the ice power in the water isn't lost. After all, it's a highly rare and valuable treasure. Regardless, Frosty dives headfirst into the water anyways. As a result, he's frozen solid in a chunk of ice the second he makes contact with the water. Well, that's one way to cool down his excitement, I guess. Pun fully intended. From behind him, Gao Peng hears the voice of a woman asking if this is his familiar. When he turns around, he sees a beautiful young woman. For some reason, his mind instantly focuses on the red lotus pattern on her forehead, something he internally berates himself for. He answers in the affirmative, and the girl then asks him what time it is. Weird question, but alright. Gao Peng answers that it's 7:30 p.m. The girl tells him she hasn't had guests in a while and asks how long it's been since the planet's elemental revitalization. When she hears him say that it's only been 5 years, she seems a tad disappointed and says that she's been asleep for a long time. That aside, though, it's very impressive that he's been able to raise Lord-tier familiars in just 5 years. Out of nowhere, she then asks Gao Peng if he'd like to taste her cooking and tells him she's great at making grilled fish. Instead, Gao Peng reassures her that he has canned food of his own, something he proceeds to offer her when she admits she doesn't even know what that is. Gao Peng offers a can to her, causing the knight behind the woman to perk up in concern. He's in the middle of warning her that it doesn't look very healthy when she pulls a spoon out of her dress and digs into the can. So she just keeps that in there. In just a few moments, the can is emptied and the woman is on the verge of crying. Gao Peng just tells her he has plenty more and the knight collapses on all fours with the despair of being totally disregarded. Peng really just seduced her with a can of soup. Didn't know he had game like that. Frosty breaks out of his ice and declares that he's back to King Tier. Gao Peng concludes that monsters above King Tiers must not be allowed to appear in their world yet, which is why Frosty didn't get even higher. Focusing back on the girl, Gao Peng tells her that it's getting late and he just came here to help Frosty level up. In response, she gives him a magnetic beast as a gift. With this, he'll be able to find the palace again next time he's here since it seeks out its partner beast which is in there. With that, Gao Peng promises to send her a shipment of canned foods once he gets home. The girl introduces herself as Bei Qingyan of the Bei tribe and tells him she'll find him in Yuzhou when her people have returned. And with that, a deal is made for the future. Gao Peng and his familiars are trudging their way through the snowy land of the North Pole in hopes of exploring the area more before heading home. Considering what a rare trip this is, Gao Peng wants to take back a souvenir. Eventually, they come across a horde of strange monsters. According to the system, these are yellow-browed monster penguins. Gao Peng confusedly asks if this is really a penguin as the closest one reaches all the way up to his chest. Suddenly, the whole horde starts screaming at him. Frosty plays translator and tells him they're warning them to stay away from their territory. Slicey is instantly ready to cut them down, but Gao Peng holds him back. He thinks about how these penguins should be in the South Pole, not the North, and comes to a decision. He asks Frosty to freeze the ones blocking their way so the rest will be scared away. The chibi lion does just that, but it angers the rest of the penguins instead and they block their path even more. At Gao Peng's command, Slicey steps in and straight up scalps a couple of their heads. Funnily enough, the loss of their hair spooks the penguins more than being full-on frozen and they all run away. Talk about not having your priorities straight. With the penguins gone, Gao Peng is able to examine what they were keeping them away from. This turns out to be a frozen ship with the flag of the Northern Bear region. Most of its cannon barrels, radar, and other apparatus have been destroyed completely from being frozen solid. Finding this quite interesting, Gao Peng asks Slicey which way the penguins ran off to. The familiars point out a nearby cave entrance and Gao Peng decides to check it out. After entering the cave, they find that it's actually some kind of abandoned lab facility. Most likely the penguins from earlier were captured and experimented on here. The lab was likely abandoned because of an accident or monster attack. He enters an inner room further in and finds no signs of human corpses, so either there were no casualties or the survivors took the bodies with them. Or the monster ate them. Yeah, not a very comforting idea. Right as he says this, the monster they've been speculating about shows itself. A level 45 yellow-browed emperor monster penguin with a mutant title. Frosty translates his angered squawking and explains that it thinks they're the ones who killed its family and captured it for experimentation. Also it wants to eat them. Gao Peng frantically runs away from the hungry beast and tries to reach the exit since this place isn't ideal for a fight. Unfortunately, the penguin seals off the exit with a wave of ice. With no other options left, Frosty jumps off Gao Peng's shoulder and tells him that he can't be a freeloader forever. With a quick and explosive release of his power, the lion turns from a chibi into a terrifying beast with a mane of frozen crystals. He leaps at the Emperor Penguin with a frost attack, but it breaks out pretty easily. Frosty comments that this is expected since his power is only back to King Tier. Even so, he has some pretty neat tricks. When the penguin sends an ice war his way, Frosty uses frost consumption to fully absorb the attack and then slashes the now fleeing penguin. While Slicey rages at the now back in his chibi form Frosty, Gao Peng marvels at the frost consumption skill's effectiveness. That aside, he instructs Silly to bring the penguin's corpse back with them so he can study the gene splicing process the Northern Bear region must have used on it. Frosty just comments that this method has the downside of destroying a beast's innate abilities and mocks humans for always trying to play God. I mean, damn, he ain't wrong. Meanwhile, on the other side of the planet, some real heavy crap is going down outside the Lusaka spatial rift to the Black Fog world. The general in charge of the area can be seen receiving a report about a massive anaconda monster that's been named the Black Jormungandr. The beast is actually above King Tier and incredibly powerful. Rather than being afraid though, the general is only interested in how valuable the core crystal of such a monster will be and how he'll go down in history as a hero if he beats it. Lust for fame and fortune. It can be anyone's downfall, kids, so avoid that. Right as the general's internal monologue ends, the entire base starts quaking like crazy. The general's familiar, a massive lion, and is just barely able to grab him and carry him away from danger when the Black Jormungandr itself erupts from the ground and destroys their building. Seeing it now in person, all the general can say is that they're doomed. Over in the Northern Bear region's Tomsk-based city, the Southern Sky have just opened a new branch. Inside, Gao Peng and old Huang are having a conversation. Their first batch of familiars to be sold here are ready. Gao Peng talks about how he's observed the people here, and as long as a familiar is strong, he'll gain popularity here with ease. At his question, Huang tells him about the situation in Lusaka and reveals that their spatial rift has been closed off. According to him, the Black Jormungandr was found in deep hibernation in the Black Fog world and was awakened when they tried to open its brain to steal its core crystal. Jesus, how stupid can you get? Hearing about the lockdown causes Gao Peng to panic as his Grandpa G was in the Black Fog world last he checked. Luckily, Huang tells him that G actually returned to Yuzhou City beforehand, so he's fine. Additionally, he strongly agrees with Gao Peng's decision to open a branch in this region. Gao Peng notes that if their business here in Tomsk goes smoothly, it could easily expand across the whole northern region. Then, Huang shows him the familiar they'll be selling tomorrow, the Commander Tier's 6-horned Dreadwolf. Between its combat, healing, and sensory abilities, it's the perfect hunting partner for people in the vast wilderness of this snowy area. Gao Peng praises Huang for never disappointing. Next, he asks him to arrange for their familiar to spar against one of the premier familiars of the Northern Bear region to showcase its advantages. Finally, he's made a new friend lately named Bunshaft, who's the second son of a well-known local family. As such, they'll be coming along tomorrow to liven things up, so Huang is to reimburse him. After Huang leaves, Gao Peng ponders on just how much is going on and wonders how Dumby's doing over in the Black Fog world. In said world, an army of undead stands before the Lake of 1,000 Streams. Here, they face off against a massive, whale-sized piranha monster under Dumby's command. Said undead overlord wishes to add the piranha to his army, but his attention is diverted to a powerful aura oozing from beneath the swamp. With a quick application of his resurrection, Dumby brings back a long-dead monster that the piranha recognizes as the blue water sky toad, a monster it killed in the past. Once the toad jumps into the fray, the piranha is pushed into a defensive role. At Dumby's orders, his army surrounds the piranha and launches a series of attacks at its hide. Enraged, the piranha tries to shake them off, but Dumby just sends in another wave of undead to attack it. Between the toad and Dumby's army, the piranha is slowly forced over the edge of defeat. In a last-ditch effort, it unleashes a massive attack called the Water Dragon Tooth, causing a massive explosion of power and water across the surface of the lake. As the steam from this attack clears and the area becomes visible again, Dumby decides to settle this matter himself. Damn, dude's a total Giga Chad now. Dumby crouches down and collects energy in the palm of his arm, which holds the sign of his dark flames. As the energy swirls together, he opens his eyes and launches himself at the piranha's head with immense speed and force. A single punch from him stuns the piranha long enough that Dumby is able to follow up and crush its skull. Standing on its head, he mocks the piranha and says there's really nothing special in the land of 1,000 streams. A few moments later, his power overwrites the piranha's living existence, and it's brought back as yet another member of his undead army. With the piranha now at his back, Dumby declares that he is the master of the land of 1,000 streams from this point on. Talk your crap, king. Over in the northern Bear region, Gao Peng is enjoying a nice cup of morning coffee while he's in his bathrobe. I don't know how many kinds of robes rich folks have. He turns on the TV to a news report about the Southern Sky's new familiar store here in the Huaxia area. It's not even 8 a.m. yet, and sure enough, the queue outside the store is massive. On a display above, the soon-to-be customers can watch the battle between the six-horned dread wolf and the area's previous default familiar, the Icefall bear. The customers are quick to praise how amazing the dread wolf is and talk about their plans once they get one for themselves. Gao Peng has a smile on his face as he watches what a success the store is sizing up to be, not to mention the great impression the six-horned dread wolf has left on the locals. Now that the new branch is stable, he's free to leave things to Huang and continue with the next step of his own journey. He shares the news of the Black Jormungandr with Frosty and tells him that he doesn't know what tier it is, so he can't go over there anytime soon. Frosty is quick to dismiss the idea that the snake could be anything above Emperor tier at most. After all, what Overlord tier would dare to slumber in the territory of another Overlord tier monster? Manga used to be a big shot and all, but the chibi is way too full of himself. Luckily, Gao Peng is saved from the Frost Lion's unashamed bragging when he gets a call from his grandpa. Pulling up the video feed on his wall screen, Gao Peng speaks to the older man. Grandpa G tells him that there is once again trouble brewing in Chang'an. There's a monster invasion coming from the Taklamakan Desert itself. That is to say, the whole desert is slowly moving to Chang'an, and it seems to be becoming a sentient monster. Based on their current calculations, the desert will completely cover Chang'an in just a decade. Gao Peng knows that Chang'an has seen its fair share of disasters, but this is a little too insane even for him. His grandfather agrees and tells him that's why he'll be checking out the situation tomorrow. Gao Peng instantly asks if he can join his grandfather and tells him he's got an ice-type familiar now so he could be useful. G smiles happily at his grandson and tells him to go ahead. Before ending the call, he mentions that the movement of the Taklamakan Desert is incredibly strange. Based on the trajectory it's taken and its original position, the desert seems to have begun moving towards Chang'an since the very beginning of the catastrophe. Gao Peng narrows his eyes as he thinks that there may be something in Chang'an that's attracting it. And so, the next day, Gao Peng and his grandfather are flying over the desert aboard White Dragon. Gao Peng is sure the desert isn't alive since he can't see any sign of life with the system at all. But despite that, the fact is the desert is moving. And not just moving, but even consuming the soil around it to become stronger. Gao Peng realizes before long how strange it is that he can't spot a single monster in the whole desert. Even in terrible conditions, there's always something that holds out somehow. Just then, the treasure-sniffing mouse jolts awake and tries to jump straight off their ride. Gao Peng grabs him before he can fall and wonders what the hell that was about. Just then, a massive amount of beams come crashing down from the sky into the desert sand. Suddenly, White Dragon declares that he's found it, whatever it is. With the destruction from White Dragon's beams, a bunch of strange white tentacles poking out of the sand are exposed. At Gao Peng's question to the treasure-sniffing mouse, it tells him that what it sensed is further down. After getting permission from his grandpa, Gao Peng leaps down to the sand and has Frosty freeze that whole patch of sand. Then, Goldie blasts the chunk of ice apart, exposing what was underneath all that sand. A level 51 came tier beast with a psychic attribute known as the Brain of Growth. Yeah, that's not creepy at all. Gao Peng is amazed by what he's seeing but equally disgusted. Thank you, saying your man. When the brain tries to run, Gao Peng instructs Goldie to go ahead and catch it. He leaps at the brain, slicing apart all the tentacles it sends at him, only to suddenly get caught by a mental attack. A moment later, Goldie is stuck in his own personal nightmare experience. One where he's being abandoned by Gao Peng for being too expensive to raise. In the illusion, Goldie starts wondering if it's all his fault and feels guilty for everything bad he's ever done to Gao Peng. In the outside world, Gao Peng feels a bit queasy, but otherwise is able to resist the mental attack thanks to Dumby's soul fire. When he raises his eyes, he spots Goldie, Da Zi, and the mouse all in varying states of sleep-talking and begging his forgiveness for the stuff they've done. Frosty refers to the whole experience as enjoying the show. He not wrong. Frosty offers to catch the brain monster and return them back to normal, but Gao Peng grabs and stops him instead. He's going to use this opportunity to the fullest and learn all the bad stuff they've done behind his back. Later, Grandpa G comes down to the desert floor to see what Gao Peng has done. Sure enough, the brain monster is captured and being held between some ice pillars. G is amazed by how the brain is completely exposed to the elements but somehow shows no signs of damage or dehydration. Gao Peng explains that the brain was using its power to move the desert and offers it to his grandfather to form a contract with. When the old man declines, explaining that he doesn't have the soul power to form a contract with another king tier beast, Gao Peng decides to take it for himself. After all, it's not every day you get your hands on a psychic-type monster after all. Suddenly, Gao Peng starts hearing voices speaking to him from over his shoulders. The first is that of a little boy, and Gao Peng instantly realizes the brain is speaking to him telepathically, so he asks the question burning in his mind. Why is he making the desert move towards Chang'an? Seeing no reason to lie, the brain reveals its original appearance before the Great Catastrophe and explains the situation. He is Wang Zhang. When the cataclysm hit 5 years ago, he was hiking through the desert, which then experienced a massive sandstorm. The day was changed into this thing. His daughter's birthday was only a week away. Ever since then, he's been trying to return to his daughter in Chang'an City and sing her a birthday song. Goldie is brought to tears by the man's story while Gao Peng keeps his composure. Wang Zhang explains that his current state of existence stops him from leaving the desert since he technically is the desert. Regardless of his plight, Gao Peng can only offer him two real options: surrender and become Gao Peng's familiar, or get fed to Da Zi, who's looking very hungry right about now. The brain shifts its mental image to that of a woman and slyly asks Gao Peng what it would gain from him if it agrees. Just then, Goldie's sadness leaves him in favor of anger, and he smacks the cells out of the brain. How dare it try to start negotiations in the current situation? Gao Peng is being nice to it. Damn Karen, all right, chill. After forming the contract with the brain, which I shall now refer to as Brainy, Gao Peng is able to view the inside of its psyche. Here, all the memories of the brains Brainy has eaten are stored. Gao Peng can see that most of them are from low-level creatures with minimal intelligence, but there are about 7 whole humans in here too. Luckily, most of them passed from the disaster that occurred at the start of the cataclysm and not by Brainy's hands. From what Gao Peng can tell, Brainy's eye acts as both a visual organ and the mouth. Releasing memory fragments inside his psyche causes a brief power boost to Brainy. From that, Gao Peng concludes that even memories are a form of matter, albeit intangible. Yeah, he lost me. That sounds insane. Returning to the outside world, Gao Peng instructs Brainy to relinquish his control of the Taklamakan Desert. Though the desert will keep shifting even after that, it'll stop moving specifically towards Chang'an. In the midst of this talk, Goldie comes up to Gao Peng and asks if the treasure-sniffing mouth is dead. Right as Gao Peng tells him it's alive, the mouse perks up and leaps into the sand while screaming about treasure. Gao Peng turns to Brainy and asks if there are other monsters down there. The brain explains that it's just some parasitic beasts of his and brings them out. Said parasites turn out to be demonic sand tree, which is a parasite, but there are further parasite beetles living off of it. Parasitic times 2. Goldie waves over Gao Peng and shows him the mouse burrowing into the sand like there's no tomorrow. Gao Peng is shocked to see that the mouse has actually found something useful. From the sand, the edge of a giant slab is poking out. Upon fully digging up the slab, it turns out to be one that's identical to the one they found in the Dali Desert. A white jade bone with a complex pattern across the front in scarlet red. Reactions are varied. Grandpa G is amazed and happy with his grandson's abilities. Said grandson is exasperated with his mouse, and said mouse is all but humping the damn slab. Anyway, now that problem's settled, he wants to drop by Hanzhong later. Gao Peng just looks at him with confusion. 3 days later, the pair arrived in the Hanzhong-based city just over the suburbs atop White Dragon. Grandpa G gives Gao Peng something of a history lesson and explains a bunch of stuff that, well, I'll be honest, it'll bore you to death if I read it out. I recommend pausing real quick and reading through the lore dump. History lesson aside, G tells his grandson that the cataclysm brought a strange change in this land of prosperity. There were reports of fighting noises from Mount Dingjun recently, on top of sightings of army tents and flags. A Lord-tier monster trainer was sent by the city to inspect the area, but he didn't find anything suspicious. Gao Peng quickly comes to the conclusion that they hid the truth for some reason. Ji tells him that what he just narrated was the official statement given to the public. In truth, the trainer found a flag on Mount Dingjun. Rather than answering Gao Peng's curious questions about the flag possibly coming to life, Ji just tells him to wait and see for himself. Killing me with the suspense here, old man. The pair land near the top of the mountain in the middle of an army base when Gao Peng starts to hear someone shouting obscenities about bringing glory to the Han dynasty and having Xia Huo taste steel. Gao Peng can do little other than deadpan at the ridiculous statements being made, and his grandfather just tells him to come on over. The two ascend the stairs to the top of the mountain where Gao Peng spots the culprit. A level 46 Lord-tier military conferment flag. It's a damn flag. A flag is somehow a Lord-tier monster. Between the flag and the level 45 land terror alligator holding it up, Gao Peng is actually at a loss for words. Just then, a buff young old man comes up to the pair and strikes up some friendly conversation with Ji. Ji introduces him to Gao Peng as Uncle Lu. He's the friend who shared the intel about the ingredient Gao Peng was searching for a little while back. Gao Peng bows to him in thanks, and the good-natured man just laughs it off. He then shows them a strange rock which he found while trying to subdue the conferment flag. Seeing it for what it is, Gao Peng can only thank Lu and offer his own assistance if the man ever needs it. Lu just tells him it's no problem and invites the two to dinner with him. Gao Peng hands off the rock to Da Zi and tells him to be careful as it's a material for his evolution. Not wanting to actually carry the whole damn case, Da Zi buys off Goldie with 10,000 Alliance credits and a box of salted fish in exchange for carrying it instead. Dude just got scammed. That's way too much money. Sure enough, Goldie was planning on this to begin with. He knows how pampered Da Zi is, so he's looking for ways to scam the centipede out of the money he's given by Gao Peng. Over at Lu's place, Grandpa G makes fun of his friend for being unable to cut through and butcher the Ghostfire Crow he's planning to feed them tonight. Lu is adamant, though, that the Ghostfire Crow is a Lord tier, so it's only natural that cutting through it would be immensely difficult. Coming up to them, Gao Peng asks Lu to let him give it a go. Glad to see a young man who's willing to put in some work. Lu lets him take a crack at it. Once he gets his hands on the crow, Gao Peng makes Da Zi bite one of its claws off and then makes a makeshift knife out of that claw. From there, it's a matter of minutes before Gao Peng has expertly butchered all the meat they'll need for dinner. Freaking show off, Lu is very impressed with what he just saw while Gao Peng's familiars get busy making kebab skewers. Well, Goldie does at least. Internally, Lu is amazed by Gao Peng's strength, since it's no small feat to cut through Ghostfire Crow flesh even with its own claw. Suddenly, a group of people barge in, causing him to ask who they are. They explain that they're from Hanzhong-based city. Before they can say anything further, Lu tells Ji and Gao that they should go ahead and eat first while he deals with whatever this is. Outside, Lu is told by the lead girl that a plague has spread throughout the city and caused a state of quarantine. Confused, Lu asks what he can do about that since he's far from a doctor. That's a pretty valid and even responsible point to make. The girl is insistent that he can calm things down, though. She claims that infected monsters are acting aggressively and Lu can deal with them since he's an elite trainer. Before he can reply, Ji and Gao walk out as well and ask what's going on. Lu uses the chance to remind Ji that he barely got his two familiars through sheer dumb luck, so calling him an elite trainer is more than a slight exaggeration. He doesn't want to ignore the trouble in Hanzhong, but he just doesn't have the skill set to be of any real help. Once he hears this, Gao Peng's mind is already made up and he asks his grandpa to come on and take a look at what they can do. Later, the trio are now in a hospital in Hanzhong. Here, they're shown the files of 3 different patients who have been exposed to the virus 3 different amounts of time. The woman who was infected just 3 days ago is mostly fine, but she's rapidly losing intelligence. Next, a man who was infected 2 weeks ago looks like a straight-up zombie from COD or a thug from Arkham Asylum. Finally, there's the patient who has been exposed to the virus for a month. Somehow, he's not infectious, so it's somewhat safe to get closer and examine him. Gao Peng requests a chance to do just that and is escorted down to the ward where he's kept. The whole place has been remodeled to withstand the attacks of a commander tier for a full hour, in fact. The patient inside the room Gao Peng wishes to study is huddled up into a corner. As soon as he senses them, though, the far-from-human creature rushes at the glass and puts on a display fitting of the most horrific zombies in all of sci-fi media. Gao Peng reads the system's entry about this person who now counts as a monster and learns that this is all caused by the green plague bug. Said bug releases fragments of itself all over the place as a method of reproduction. One particular thing Gao takes note of is that the bug's larvae survive even extreme conditions. He telepathically asks Brainy to perform a scan of the hospital. Sure enough, he does just that from high above where Flamey is carrying him and sends a mental snapshot over to Gao Peng. Once he sees the area around himself with the filtered vision, though, Gao Peng is freaked out enough even for the doctor to notice. Those larvae are all over the place. Luckily, he's able to pass it off as fear of the patient's terrible state, and he goes back to ask Uncle Lou about any ideas. As he's walking, Gao asks Brainy to do another scan, but of the whole city this time. And don't send him the results, just tell him verbally what he sees. Brainy tells him that they haven't spread across the whole city, but they're getting pretty damn close by now. Gao Peng knows that they could theoretically kill all these larvae, but it would ultimately be useless, since the source would still be out there. As a result, he goes to the girl who came to Lou for help and tells her to take him where the plague first broke out. The girl leads Gao Peng to the site of the first case, another hospital known as Nunxiang Orthopedic. The whole place had to be shut down because by the time people realized that the plague was loose, 90% of the staff were already infected with it. That's Gao Peng's first clue about the situation. He asks Frosty if he has any ideas on how to handle the situation. The lion chibi tells him that dealing with a parent insect will kill all the little ones, but Gao Peng already knew that. The problem is finding out how to smoke the parent insect out of hiding. Nuke the city. Worked in the Avengers, I think. Maybe? Gao Peng asks the girl if there's any CCTV footage of the hospital and if any leads have been found from watching it. Though the girl doesn't have much of an answer to that question, a new voice does. A youngish-looking man in an outfit that screams cop comes up to them and tells Gao Peng that they already found something. The problem is they severely lack hard evidence, so they can't just bring the guy in. The man introduces himself as Li Meng from Hanzhong City's Forensic Division and tells Gao that they already have a prime suspect. What's even worse is that even if they do take him in, they don't know if that'll stop the actual plague from spiraling out of control. Well, further out of control that is, Li Meng tells Gao that since he's here, Hanzhong is in his care. That is wildly irresponsible since he's a kid, but alright. Meng hands Gao the file of their suspect and he quickly opens it. What he sees inside, though, is shocking to the young man. Later that night, the doctor from the hospital Lu took Gao and Ji to return to his massive home and enters what appears to be a secret room. Or a secret basement, rather. Here, he laughs like an evil genius of a maniac as he observes his familiar floating in a tank. He claims this is his power and that all those who have ever mocked or belittled him shall fall whenever he wants them to. Dude, he had a life. Really out here crying about someone being mean. He reveals that his full plan is to have his familiar's larvae infect all of Hanzhong and then keep the city as his own to control. Or he can find the cure all by himself and gain global fame and fortune. The opportunities are endless. Well, it would be at least, if he'd managed to not get caught. From the stairs to this secret basement, Gao Peng slowly descends the steps, causing the doctor to make a run for it. Really? What happened to the evil genius crap a second ago? Dude's a flake. As he desperately tries to run away, the doctor suddenly notices that he's feeling extremely cold. As he's wondering why that is, he becomes fully encased and frozen in a person-sized block of ice by Frosty. Gao Peng takes a moment to mock the doctor for thinking he was some great mastermind that covered all of his tracks when the truth is that the authorities were onto him from the very beginning. Turning to the familiar, Gao Peng quietly observes it for a moment, wondering what to do. Before he can decide, the familiar tries to defend its master by sending out dozens of larvae at Gao Peng. The tamer doesn't even move though, simply instructing Brainy to use his psychic powers and incapacitate the larvae. Once that's done, he tells Brainy to give the bug another shot, only to learn that the last attack was his strongest one. Gao Peng is nothing but embarrassed that his familiar can't even beat a commander tier and takes the opportunity to teach him Finnish. He has Brainy stack his attacks on top of each other without releasing them and then let all of them loose as one on Gao's signal. Sure enough, this strategy works and Brainy is super proud of himself for being able to do it, almost kind of wholesome. With that, Gao Peng leaves after asking Frosty to freeze the bug's corpse to show the authorities. Upstairs, Gao Peng fantasizes about all the things he can do once he trains Brainy a bit more. He could even brainwash monsters from a young age and cut out the need for a blood contract altogether. For now, though, it's time to have Brainy get rid of the leftover larga in the city. And before that, he has to dress the brain up, something which makes the brain very excited. In Suntel City of the Lohun district, a robed man on a dragon burns the place down and announces that the city is now declared independent. They belong to the World Allied Government, but all internal affairs shall now be handled internally as well. Outside interference is hereby forbidden. At the same time, similar situations play out in Truda City of the South Egypt district, Ueda City of the Nihon district, and many more. Over with our two main men. Grandpa G is lamenting the upcoming end of their current peaceful days. Gao Peng just smiles and asks him if this isn't normal. Mankind couldn't even come together to fight the cataclysm 5 years ago, so why would they now? What he's interested in right now is that all the regions except their Waxia are currently in pandemonium. She explains that it's because these people aren't sure about the southern skies standing in the matter. With the rise of monster trainer as a profession, pre-existing wealth and status have become meaningless in the face of powerful familiars. Anyone with luck and some effort can become a trainer, and then these people are responsible for defending their whole cities. This then breeds dissatisfaction because they're not compensated accordingly to the risk they take. At that point, it's easy to stir up a rebellion and organize a loose group to act together. However, these rebels are few in number and nowhere near powerful enough to stand up to the modern-day equivalent of the imperial court. Gao Peng just smiles at this and hints at that court being none other than his grandfather himself. The old man is naturally embarrassed by the extreme praise, so Gao Peng swings the talk away from that aspect. Another important thing to consider is that these rebels seem very unorganized. Their actions are hardly coordinated outside of the loosest sense. Some of them even went as far killing the 12 elders, while others just challenged them to a fair duel or left them alone. G responds that they're thugs looking for glory and nothing more. The 12 elders is just an empty title anyways. Hell, it was even offered to him at one point, but he couldn't be bothered to take it. Right as he says this, Huang enters the room and calls for their attention. He tells them that the situation outside is only getting worse. 5 regions have declared independence, and all 5 have been blacklisted and imposed sanctions on by the world government. Today, the number has risen to 7 regions, and one of the 12 elders has been found dead. This elder, Bojin Duo's familiar, was sliced open and killed as well. The trainer who did this, Hua Lun, is a 22-year-old with extreme arrogance and a king-tier familiar known as the Dark Azura. The group watched some video footage of a monster, allowing Gao to get a read on it with the system. The thing seems to be a dark-type close combatant like White Dragon. Huang tells Ji about how this Hua Lun kid was spouting off about his familiar being even better than Ji and Gao's. Ji just brushes him off as an ignorant kid talking smack when he's drunk though, and Gao agrees. They aren't interested in messing with a kid just because he's a bit of a brag. More importantly, Gao asked about the clue Huang has found regarding the concentration stone. Huang responds that it's been confirmed that someone saw the stone turn into a flying beast at night and then turn back into a stone at the foot of the Goddess Peak in the morning. What is this? Night at the museum? His mind made up, Gao Peng talks his grandpa into visiting Goddess Peak tomorrow since it's the first day of the Lunar New Year. Plus, it'll be a good day to have Dazi evolve quicker. In the background, the centipede in question brags about how he's about to get stronger than all of his brother familiars. Out in the middle of a massive lake, a little girl on a boat points out a strange fisherman to her older sister. Said sister scolds her for being rude to strangers and warns her about getting in trouble. Suddenly, a giant beast they know as the White Crocodile King bursts from the water and starts rushing their way. The girl is terrified and asks why this is happening since they already gave it the yearly offering. Her sister tells her it's not coming at them though. It seems to be going towards that strange fisherman. Concerned for the stranger, the little girl yells out for the fisherman to run, but this is no ordinary fisherman. As the crocodile gets close, the rocks that Gao Peng is sitting on start moving and he rises into the air, revealing Stripey in his full glory. The crocodile is absolutely terrified and turns tail to get the hell out of there, but Stripey is able to hit it at Gao Peng's command. Just like that, the being this place's people gave offerings has been wiped out. Later, Gao Peng studies his map and figures that they should be closing in on Goddess Peak pretty soon now. Nearby, he hears the sound of pages being flipped and decides to check it out. He sees what is known as Feifeng Peak, where the Great Yu once stopped a flood with the help of a mystical book. As a joke, Gao Peng asks if a book is going to fly out of the mountain. Ridiculously enough, it does. Gao notices that the book is flying towards Goddess Peak and decides to follow it. Once Stripey's taken some guy's fruit, the group climb up the mountain together. Up at the peak, Gao Peng sees a dragon up in the distant sky. On focusing more though, he sees a pair of scissors and a system pop up identifying them as the concentration stone. Overjoyed at finding it, Gao Peng follows after the stone with his familiars in tow. Eventually, they stumble upon an undocumented valley that looks completely different from the outside world. Strangely enough, Gao Peng spots a woman dancing in the valley. When he questions her presence there, he's able to see the woman's actually just a stone and he was seeing an illusion. Stepping forward, Gao Peng decides to explore the area with Stripey. Before they can actually do that though, a level 50 Holy Spring Spirit shows up and yells at them to die. Gao Peng tries to talk, but the thing is hellbent on a fight. Gao Peng knows he doesn't have another option, but things are quickly stacking against him when a legendary grade monster shows up as well. This is the Dragon Decapitation chapter. Water. Yeah, I don't get it either. Just roll with it. One by one, several projections are created that copy existing familiars like Stripey. Luckily, they're all under level 50, so he should be able to handle them. When Gao Peng tries to warn the monsters against fighting him, they coat him in the water barrier skill to slow him down and launch an attack. Unfortunately for them, this skill is useless on him and Stripey. Without even flinching, he takes the attack and orders Stripey to take down their enemies, but to do it without killing them. The end, for now.